Live, okay. Okay, everyone, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to get started with the audit committee meeting. We're missing one member that we expect, but hopefully she'll arrive shortly, but we're going to go ahead and get started and not hold anybody up. If we can go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So, here at the Life Saving Station, there's me, of course, Julie Johnson. We've got, go ahead and just say your name for the record.
Debbie Durazio.
David Vogt.
And we have Bernie Krause on Zoom. So he is here as well. So we officially have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Bernie, can you at least turn your video on so I can see you, so I can get a hand raise?
Well, I'll have to give you vocal because for some reason my video isn't working.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to know how the best way to communicate with you. Thanks.
Yeah.
So adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bernie? In favor? Okay. That's not, that's Gary. Okay. Well, there's three of us, so that passes either way. Hi, Donna. And Donna is Alexander is walking in. We are live, Donna. So we just adopted the agenda. And the next item on the agenda is we have 3 sets of minutes from our last 3 meetings. Hopefully everyone, I sent them out. Hopefully everybody's had a time to look at them. Thank you, Bernie, for doing those as always. Does anybody have any comments with regard to any corrections on any of the minutes? Okay, can I get a motion? I will just do these as a group if there aren't any concerns or questions. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hi for me too.
Thank you, Bernie. I would hope you would approve them.
I know, I wrote them.
Since you did them, I would hope you would want to approve them. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the presentation of the draft audit. So I'm going to turn it over to Dan Kinney, who's here on behalf of the audit company to tell us about our audit this year.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Dan Kenny, partner with Mitchell & Titus, here to present the audit for the town of Dewey Beach for March 31, 2023. With me on the screen is Venkana Alkunta. He is senior manager who's worked on the account. And could he have control of the screen because we're going to have documents so that people can follow? He can share. He can share? Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. So we're going to go over 3 documents. We're going to go over the financial statements. We're going to go over the management letter, and then we're going to go over the presentation. So let's go ahead and start with the, Venkana on the screen, if you could start with the financial statements first, please. So what I'm going to do with respect to the financial statements is go through and tell you what pages changed, because we sent one draft, a week before today, and then we had a second draft, and then we had a third draft that just came out. So I thought it would be helpful to tell you what has changed. Okay, so if we can go to the financial statements, I'm going to walk you through first the independent auditor's report on page 1. And it basically indicates that we've audited the entity as of and for the year end March 31, 2023. In our opinion, we believe the financial statements are fairly presented for the year end. Our audit was conducted in accordance with 2 standards: generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And then if you go to the second page, it talks about our responsibility with respect to the audit. Page 3 goes over the RSI information and the supplementary information. And then page 4, because your audit is done in accordance with government auditing standards, we issued a report on internal control. And that is also included in this document. Okay, so your MD&A, that goes basically from pages 5 all the way through 11. I'm going to highlight to you on page 10, this changed from the second draft. If you go to the bottom of page 10, you'll see, and it's hard to see on the screen, but the last paragraph, I'm sorry, there's 2 paragraphs, and one paragraph indicated that there's a general fund increase of approximately 633,000, which was a favorable variance from the budget of, before it said 132,503, it now says 137,573. And that's also reflected on page 38. And when I get to 38, I'll talk about what changed there as well. And then on the bottom of page 10, it has a sentence where it indicates the total operating revenues of approximately 4.5 million and total general fund operating expenditures of 4,555,378. The previous draft had 4,515,378. So that increased by $40,000. Okay. Okay, so that's the only changes on page 10. And then moving along. So within your financial statements, you have your pages 12 through 17. These are your basic part of your financial statements. And I'm going to turn to page 14 and talk about what changed there from draft 2 to draft 3. So on page 14, on the committed for rainy day fund, that increased by $20,000, and the unassigned number increased by $6,000. And then the reduction was in the town hall number. So, the one number went up by 20, the other number went up by 6, and then town hall was reduced by 26K. And that was as a result of that change on the other page, that increase of the 40,000, okay? Because your fund balance policy basically is the 50% number. And that's what happened there, okay? All right, so that's page 14. So moving along, within your financial statements, I'm not going to go through, I assume you guys have read it. I'm not going to read every note or go through it. You guys are well versed. Once again, I want to point out the changes. So if you go to page 36, this is your detail of your page, of your fund balance, and because that one number changed on page 36, it's now 2751739, right? Because it changed on the other page, so that ties in exactly. Okay, moving along, page 37. Once again, because of that $20,000 change, and then the $6,000 change, and then the reduction of the town hall, your number on page 37, the 2,588,683, that changed accordingly. So that ties back to your balance. And so now it's 2,562,683 on page 37. Okay. Okay, now page 38. A couple of changes here. The original draft added you had a total revenue number of all the way to the right corner, 991,316, and then you had a total expenditure number, and those two were actually added. So it went from a favorable variance of a significant amount down to still a favorable balance of $496,000, 162. Okay, so your total revenues, your final budget numbers compared to your actual, the total revenues was a favorable variance of 991,000, and your expenditures, it was unfavorable of 495,000, resulting in a 496,162 increase in fund balance, so it's favorable overall. Okay. All right, and then the net change in fund balance, the number under the original budget, it was 132K approximately, and once again, that's that 5073 number. It kind of runs through the whole statement. All right, moving on, page 39. So this is covered payroll, the previous number you had under 2023, under cover payroll of 635,000, and the number should have been 544,226. The 635 number is actually the number for next year because the measurement date, the way the actuaries do it, it's always a year behind. So that's why the number changed. Okay, and then of course the percent, accordingly the percent changes as well. So, all right, good. So that's that. And then let's go to the change on page 42. Once again, as a result of the $26,000 reduction in assigned for capital improvements town hall and the increase in the rainy day fund and unassigned, those three numbers changed and they match the other pages as well. Okay, moving along, and so that's it with respect to the changes to the financial statement from draft 1, 2, and 3. Changes do happen. You know, once we, you guys are unique in the fact that when the auditor presents it to everyone, it presents it to the town and management at the same time. Usually it's, you present it to management and they go through it and have changes. But it's okay. You know, it's fine. I'm used to it. That's the way you guys do it. And so it gives everyone an opportunity to take a look and have questions. And, you know, at this point, I certainly want to thank management, Bill and Sheena for their assistance, the mayor, his questions, and Gary, who's on the screen somewhere. Thank him for his questions. And that's part of the process. You got to go through and look at it. There are a lot of numbers, a lot of things. So we appreciate it. Okay, so now let's go to the management letter. All right, so the management letter, let me pull that up. All right, so we have a comment regarding policies and procedures, and we noted that through our inquiries, in 24, your cash receipt policy is going to change, and you also are looking into an ERP system. So, of course, we applaud you for doing those things and looking into that. And we just want to make sure that you consider the entire environment, including financial controls and processes. And whenever you're doing it, you got to make sure you get the end users involved. Any integration to a new system, you have to have buy-in from everyone. And so we've seen it in different entities where someone has an idea to do it, they do it, and people don't buy in, and then it doesn't implement as well. So, you know, the planning phase of it is really important. Of course, when you're doing it is important, but the post-implementation important as well, because you really want to get that feedback from the users on you know, how the system's working, can they, you know, what they can do to help make it better, and it just makes the buy-in much easier and the transition easier. So that is the comment there. Moving on to the next page, IT. So you had a security risk assessment done in the previous year, and we had some items to note. And once again, this is sort of the same type of comment. Consider the financial process side to things, not just, you know, operations, if you will, with respect to that handbook and your whole approach. Make it holistic. So we want to comment on that. Okay, budget controls. This is a comment that I believe is you know, can help you guys. If you look at the one page we went over, it demonstrated your favorable overall, you know, difference between your original budget, your actual budget, and your ending number. So overall, you were favorable, you were positive. Right. But your expenditures exceeded, you know, the budgeted amounts. And so, you know, you have the presentation, you know, GASB wants you to show the original and final, and you'll see that you guys you don't make your changes to your budget during the year. You go through and you assess everything and you adjust things accordingly, you know, because you can tell you have a positive fund balance. You guys have maintained your rainy day fund. You've maintained your unassigned in accordance with your fund balance policy. So that's great. So, you know, you can see that you had a favorable balance at the end. So that's great. But, you know, what you might want to do is, as you're going along and things change your expenditures accordingly. You know, go to the council and say, okay, we have this change and here's why. and have the council approve it, because although this is a fairly close-knit group and community, you know, if someone were to pick it up, they could look at it and just say, well, geez, well, why didn't they amend the budget? Why didn't they amend it? So recommendation is go ahead and amend it. And there are controls that you could put in place, and there's recommendations from the GFOA for, you know, soft controls and hard controls to make sure that you keep things in line. So anyway, that's our recommendation with respect to the budget. Okay, fund balance. I applaud the town for adopting the policy, sticking with the policy. I have a lot of clients, and what's interesting is a lot of the clients, they don't necessarily do it because they can't all agree. So I applaud the town that the fact that you haven't, you did it because you actually have something in place that people are following and you're following. So it's going to, you know, I think that's great that you have it and do it. So, you know, just two comments, you know, continuing from the previous year, there's just a couple things you got to expand on it, and it's written in there. And so once again, that's a policy where you can go back and look and just, you know, make the changes accordingly as you work on all these other things too. So, okay. Last comment, trial balance. So this comment is the fact that your statements, you know, within your financial statements, you have a government-wide presentation and then governmental fund. I'm sure you noticed it. And then within your financial statements, you have reconciliations between the government-wide and the governmental fund. And the reason you have those reconciliations is because they have a different basis of accounting. And if you look on the letter I wrote, there's a measurement focus, and one is full accrual, or current resources, that's full accrual, and then modified accrual, okay? Or one, economic is full accrual and modified accrual is the other one. And there are differences, and that's why you have the two statements, okay? So it makes a difference as to how things are reported, because you ultimately have to report these statements. That's what I'm auditing, these two particular statements. So our recommendation is that you provide us with all these items separately. So provide us with, which you do provide this, you provide the beach replenishment fund trial balance separately. That's great. But your other trial balance is a combined trial balance that includes everything, and it's on a government-wide basis, okay, as opposed to a governmental fund basis, just the general fund. So, you know, we have to go through and we make the entries accordingly, and that's fine, but with the evolution of the town, additional funding that you're getting in, budget things that you're going to adopt and change, the fact you have a fund balance policy, you're now at the point where you should be able to do this and set this up so that when, you know, the town manager has questions, hey, what do my numbers look like at a certain point in time, you don't have to wait, you know, that long of a period to get those particular numbers. They'll have them because you already have it set up. You'll have a general fund set up. You'll know the fund balance. You'll follow that fund balance policy throughout the year. And that way it's just a little bit cleaner, and it's kind of an evolution, right? Sort of like you evolve with your fund balance policy. That's the way I'm sort of describe it to you. But it's important that I get it for the audit. You know, during the year, that's up to you. You guys can, you know, figure out how you want to do it. But at year end, I certainly have to have it. I have to have it this way. Okay. All right. So that is the management letter. And the last thing is the presentation, which we will go through that quickly. How am I doing on time? Okay.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, were we giving it to you before or not? Or is that something that's been consistently?
Great question. Great question. You have been given it to not us, to Kron Resnick and Mitchell Tyson the same way, but because you have more things going on, you know, you have more funding coming in, you have a fund balance policy, you know, you've added new accounts. It's now time to present it the way it should be presented in the statement. It'll eliminate the confusion that you have at year end when you're trying to assign your fund balance numbers. It won't be, oh my gosh, what are my fund balance numbers? Like, you'll know because you'll have your general fund separately presented And that your fund balance policy applies to your general fund, not your government wide. Okay. And remember, it's a different basis of accounting. So there's reasons for it. And I just felt like this is the time to do it. And next year you guys should do it. So,
Okay.
okay. All right. Okay. So the presentation. So then Connor, thank you very much. All right, so this just goes over the scope of services. Basically, we've substantially completed everything. We're in the process now. We've dotted the I's and we're like almost crossing the T's. We're like right there. And we're just really waiting for you guys to approve the statement and make sure there aren't any other changes. What we don't want to have is any other changes. It's fine during the draft process. That's, the way it should be, but we don't want to have any other changes. So page 5 goes through an overview of what we have. There were some immaterial accounts which we passed on in terms of entries, and that was related to depreciation and interest received. It's very small, didn't have to record that. And then the next few pages talks about the process and what we do. I'm going to read the room, and I don't think you guys are that interested in how we do our audit and what we do, okay?
Not that it's not important.
And it's extremely important, but this really does a nice job in outlining the different areas and what we do. And it's not easy. And once again, I want to thank management, the mayor, and the commissioners that are involved in help, because there's a lot to get done. It's very demanding. Mitchell & Tice is a new firm, so we required all that documentation again. And, management was very cooperative, but it's not easy. It might seem easy now when we're up here doing it, but it's not. So once again, I want to thank everyone for their help. Okay, so I think that's really all I need to present. If there's any questions or comments, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Bernie, since you're on Zoom, I'll ask you first. Do you have any questions?
Well, yes. For the recommendations, what's kind of the next step? Does Bill ask you, hey, let's sit down and discuss anything, or how did that go?
So yeah, when we sent the questions or the drafts out, we contacted Bill, talked to him about it. I'm going to let him speak to his response on the comments. He's management. I can't really speak for him, so I'll turn it over to him.
You're talking about management comments?
Yeah, the management
IT
comments.
And those
Right.
things?
Yep.
Right. So in the IT, we've invested a lot of money. Kate has invested a lot of time on the IT based on my first audit when I was here 2 years ago. Well, one of the findings was upgrading our security. And so we've invested in new routers for the town offices. They were installed in November of 2022. We've enabled SecureNet to monitor all activity over our internet connections. We've also created secure business networks and separated guest Wi-Fi network with a separate Wi-Fi passwords. All those were updated. We also completed full inventory of all workstations, which not had been done before. Ensured each was equipped with new software, which allows SecureNet to monitor all usage, which was very important. Multiple computers were not in the inventory in the past, and that was corrected. We opened an account with Bitwarden. This started a new password protocol with the staff. This allows the staff members to secure their passwords, and also the passwords have to be changed every so often. We also upgraded our outdated Microsoft accounts to Microsoft 365 for all users. We upgraded our secure storage platform and began a new protocol for storing information either on the cloud or on our server in a role-based access folders. So when I first got here, and Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, people were saving everything on their towers, right? So if that went bad or somebody left, you wouldn't have access to it. Now it's all in the cloud. It's saved in one spot. It's not on individual computers. We're in the process of drafting an IT management handbook, which will be a major undertaking. Again, Kate's done a great job on that. One of the other things I wanted to mention, I've talked to Dan about, was it's very hard for Sheena mainly for her, because during the summer, when this audit is required, what do we have? We have 60 lifeguards. What do we have? We have summer police officers. We have dog ambassadors. We have parking ambassadors. All those people and all their HR requirements coming in and out during the summer. Plus you throw an audit on top of Sheena, who's also our HR person. So we'll be asking, Sheena and I will be asking some point of the commissioners to maybe consider moving this to October, or at least September. So she's not trying to do this at the same time we are doing all our temporary summer employee hiring. So that's another thing that we are looking at. The general fund policy, 2 years ago when I got here, Commissioner Persinger was very important with getting with, at that time, Dan gave us some recommendations. We are on a Zoom call with him. We set up the general fund policy and the rainy day policy. So if you don't know, the rainy day policy is approximately 6 months worth of our expenses. And then we have an unassigned fund, which is 2 months, right, Sheena? 2 months worth of expenses. So altogether, based on our audit and based on our budget, at the end of the year, we're supposed to have close to 8 months worth of expenses saved up in case we have a major event that happens. And that was all because of the recommendations from Dan and the hard work between Sheena and Commissioner Persinger. So we are there, and it's really tough because, as Sheena has explained to me, when you have, if you project a certain amount of revenue coming in, and a certain percentage of that revenue that comes in, 5% of it will go to something like infrastructure, a certain percentage of it will go to the town hall, a certain percentage of it has to go to the rainy day and the unassigned funds. Well, that brings down your revenue that actually came in. So you're showing kind of a loss. And if I'm not explaining this right, Sheena, please let me know. It kind of shows that you're at a loss, but really you're not at a loss because that money's going into these other accounts. So that's taken me a while to understand and pick up, but none of that would have been possible without Commissioner Percy or Sheena and Dan making those recommendations 2 years ago. So in the 2 years I've been here, I think we've made some great advancements. We're not perfect and we're not done yet. Dan has given us some recommendations. I think the biggest one that Sheena and I have to look at with the commissioners is, as we go along through a budget year, if we find the police are spending more in overtime and they're above what we projected, and we're more than what we projected, and then let's say building permits have come in, we're on our 7th month and we've met our goal on building permits, we've met budget, then that money that comes in after that for building permits, we should make an adjustment in the budget and put it into the police overtime. So the police overtime is no longer over budget, we're putting money in there. So that's something we really need to concentrate on, if I'm explaining that correctly, what we need to do in this next year's budget. I don't know if I missed anything, Sheena? Okay. Dan, did I miss anything?
No, that's good.
Any questions for me?
Bernie, does that raise any other questions?
That's good. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Gary, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. And I don't know how difficult it would be for you to flip back to pages 10 and pages 38, excuse me, in the financial statements, but somewhere between drafts, there was a sentence added at the bottom of page 10, which says for fiscal year 2024, the town has budgeted total set-asides and grants revenue of, well, you can read the figures, $2,124,500, and total set-asides and grant expenditures of $1,698. I guess my question is, those set-asides, first of all, that is new revenue. It's not included in the budgeted operating revenues. That it is separate from those. But most of the grant revenue, I think, is money that the town already has. It's sitting right now in unearned revenue. I think the biggest portion of that is a $3 million grant from the state to build a new town hall. And then when you look at the projected expenditures, you're really talking about expenditures from money that you already have in many respects. So I'm just wondering about the relevance, the consistency, how easy to interpret what the real meaning is of that sentence.
Sure, that's a fair question. And so this was added after draft number 1, sort of in anticipation of potential questions, because if you were to look at your budget or the Excel, Sheena, that was provided, it has general fund and then it has set-asides and grants. So it's up to you. It's your statement. We can eliminate that sentence. It's the only reason I thought, you may want to include it. And once again, it's your MD&A, it's not mine, so we can take it out. But it's because within your budget, you have a line that says general fund, which is, the 455 and the other number. And then you have a column that says set-asides and grants. So I just thought, okay, maybe to explain things a little bit further, let's add that to it. But you can certainly take it out. It's up to you.
Okay.
I don't have a problem taking it out if it's confusing.
I mean, I don't feel real strongly about it. I just think, again, most of it's not really new revenue. It's revenue that's already there, and it's a different focus than the first sentence in that paragraph where you're talking about operating revenues and operating expenditures.
Fair
so
point.
If go to page 38, and then my only other comment here is we're looking at a budgetary comparison schedule. And the line at the bottom of expenditures described as capital outlay is really the amount of set-asides for FY 2023. And so you have a budgetary basis here that includes set-asides. Back on page 10, we talked about operating revenues and operating expenditures that don't include set-asides. Is it as clear as it should be? Or could be, perhaps? Should there be a footnote somewhere to describe what those capital outlays really represent? And the other point to make there for that particular line, since those are tied to percentages of revenue, if revenue goes up, we're going to be over budget on those or under budget, depending on what happens with revenue. So that's always probably going to be, it's going to be something that it would be difficult to change throughout the year. But in any case, my main question is, how clear is that? Should it be footnoted? Are there any issues there we should worry about?
Yeah, to me, it's pretty clear because your capital outlay original budget comes right off of your schedule. How you guys come up with it, of course, it should be done in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's how your budget is done. I don't want to comment on the appropriateness of the word set aside as an expenditure as it relates to GAAP. I don't want to comment on that, but what I can tell you is your capital outlay original budget number based on the Excel and what was provided, from management, it's $380,750, and the expenditures are those particular expenditures. So I wouldn't be inclined to make any change because it would have to make sense and it would have to be in accordance with GAAP. So I would recommend you keep that. And Gary, to your point, on page 10, I think a recommendation would be you might want to just go ahead and remove that last sentence because it could be a little bit confusing. I think that's a good observation. So if you guys can tell me now to do that, we'll go ahead and we can make that change. We can remove that last sentence on page 10, and that would be the only change that we have. And then, Gary, once you get into the next year in terms of either preparing for the audit with the 3 different trial balances that I need, I need the general fund, I need the beach replenishment fund, and then I need the combined. You'll see things that it'll probably become a little bit clearer as to procedurally what you guys should do on a monthly basis. But that's down the road. Once again, I got to emphasize the fact that you have a fund balance policy is really good because a lot of entities don't do it. And what it's done for you, it's really helped in terms of monitoring and making sure you guys are being in accordance with the policy. So I think that's great. But the other areas, you're going to have to progress in those other areas. And hopefully with my recommendations and some additional assistance, you will.
Thank you.
Anything else, Gary?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, then one last item, and I failed to recognize the help of your external accounting firm, Falcassen, Allison Hauk. She's on the phone. Oh, there she is. Look, wave, Allison. There we go. There we go. See, I didn't forget
Big
you.
help.
Benkana's shy. He's not on the screen, but it's okay. And I don't know if Kristen on my team is here either. I can't see that far. But anyway, all right. So that concludes my presentation. I think from what we've discussed, I think what we're going to do is we'll make the one change, and then it's up to you if you want me to wait and just go draft on Friday night, and then after Friday night, go final. That way we don't have any changes, because I do not want to make any changes.
I think that if, if the committee votes to accept this with the one change we mentioned, that gets presented to the commissioners, but there's not a need for a final
Okay,
until we see if there's anything else from the commissioners
Okay.
meeting that they are
that's great. Thank
interested
you.
in being changed. So we'll present it as is with just the deletion of that
Okay,
final sentence on page 10.
all
Does that make
right.
sense?
Yeah, that's fine. And then I'll be here Friday on Zoom, and I'll go faster than I did. Is that okay? Okay. Hopefully I wasn't too slow.
Do we
too
have-
fast.
Hey, do we have anyone on for public comment? We do not. Okay, so, so at this point, I'm gonna close public comment, I guess, is the right thing to do. And do we have any comments or discussion from the committee members? Nope. So, can somebody make a motion to accept with the change as we discussed?
Motion to accept with the change.
Okay, second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thanks, Bernie. So we will go ahead and I'll present with you, Dan. I mean, I won't say much, but that the committee's recommendation is to go ahead and accept the audit with just that one amended change, and then we'll see if the commissioners have any feedback. So I don't need a final draft from you until after Friday's meeting.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
So does anybody, Bernie, do you have any final comments before we adjourn?
No, thanks again. I appreciate all the hard work.
Thanks. Anybody else have any comments before we adjourn?
Just want to say thank you to the committee and to the folks that are on Zoom, and to Kate and Sheena. Thank you.
Thanks. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I think there's a second as well. All in favor? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, so long.
Thank you.
Have a good night.